what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed. The light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome everyone to Whole Soul Mastery and Whole Soul School and Foundation's joint podcast today. I'm Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, intuitive, and a messenger of the Rising Hero's Journey and Whole Soul Mastery. And I am here today with Patrick Chevalier, and I want to share just a few things about you, Patrick, before we get into our topic. Patrick has been on before for Whole Soul School and Foundation and also Whole Soul Mastery, but not in these joint podcasts that we're doing right now. So I wanted to just reintroduce you for people that you are new to. So Patrick is a Reiki master, a practitioner in heart coherence, and a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming. And with that, which is pretty cool, all of those things, I have a feeling they'll weave together in our conversations a bit today. But I want to welcome you first. So thank you for joining me, Patrick.
Thank you, Marie, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. And I know that you are a practitioner of Reiki, and I know a lot of people that are certified, I guess. I don't know if that's the language. We're going to talk about that today, but they're Reiki practitioners. And I've been in like the alternative energy and healing world for a long time. I have never had a Reiki session. And I have never, obviously then I've never gone and got training in Reiki. So I'm always really curious about it. I think what I hear the most about it is I know people who do Reiki and work on animals and, and
Absolutely.
people who do some animal healing. And that's always intrigued me. And I know that weaves into that. So I wanted to first, why don't we just begin with what is Reiki?
Very good question.
Yes.
So, yes, Reiki is basically universal energy. I mean, energy all around us. Everything is connected. Everything is energy. And Reiki is basically universal energy. There's this book that I read a while back, and I do want to mention it. I have it in French here, but it's called The Quintessence of Reiki. And maybe we can put the references in the podcast later. But what's really interesting about this book is that they do explain the history of Reiki, where it comes from, how it was, I'm going to say, rediscovered. And they also explain, the number 7 is very important in many ways in spirituality, right? And they're talking about the universal energy being split in 7 types of energies, one being more physical, concrete, observable, and the other one being much more subtle, high frequency, but much more powerful. And that would be the Reiki one.
Wow.
And yeah. So you can see that. I thought the image was really cool is imagine you have ink and that would be the first level, very physical, very concrete. Then you make a letter out of it. The letter has is conceptual. It has a little bit more of a meaning when you turn the ink into a letter. Then you form a word, and then you form a sentence. And the more you go, the more complex it becomes, but at the same time, it becomes more powerful because of the concepts that it has. And then at the end, you have like a full book, which has, a lot of wisdom and everything. So that's how Reiki is in the scale, in a way. It's the highest energy, more subtle, but more powerful within the universal energy scale, let's say. Yeah.
That's just so beautiful how you explain that. It gives me something tangible. I like to have imagery or something else to associate with what Reiki is, and that's going to help me. I would imagine it's going to help our audience. Also, I will remember the ink and I will remember the book, and that will help me, right? It will help me a lot. And universal energy. And I can also really relate to how you just described Reiki with homeopathy, because it's a little bit of a different language, but homeopathy uses almost like a dose of whatever the ailment is in the actual remedy. And then they do something called succussing. So there's almost less and less and less of the trace substance in the remedy, but it gets stronger as you go along, right? As in the potency. So I'll just think of Reiki for me in that way. It's really helpful. So now that we know that Reiki is universal energy, right? What are the uses of Reiki?
Well, that's very large.
Mm,
Um, you know, when spring comes and you need to clean your house, you just open the windows and air the whole house out, right? Sometimes air can stagnate in certain corners, and so when you go see someone who practices Reiki and you receive a Reiki session, um, the person will have had training and initiations to be able to channel that energy through
mm,
their hands. And what it does is that it kind of airs out all our energy bodies, just like when you open a window, you know. So you do need to do that sometimes, you know, open your windows and air it out so that, you know, the air that stagnates goes away and is replaced by fresher, newer air. Well, it's the same thing in our energy bodies. You know, we have a physical body, we have energy bodies, emotional body, mental body, and so on. And using Reiki will really help to um, clear the energy out. You know, if there's certain um, places where the energy is stuck, it's beginning maybe to crystallize. Well, having Reiki will help to, you know, break those knots of energy and help the flow return into our bodies. So that's mainly the main thing that Reiki does, and I think it's part of it should be part of kind of our hygiene. You know, we take a shower every day. Well, receiving some sort of energy, I'm going to say treatment. For me, it's kind of like that. You know, you sometimes need to receive these things to air out and move the energy around because when you're stuck in your head or with certain emotions, certain thoughts, well, it can get stuck at the energy level also. So that really helps.
mm,
And understanding that and delving into all the possibilities of Reiki, you realize that you can do so many things with it. The first thing I've been talking about is, you know, going to see a practitioner or a master and getting a treatment in a session. So that's on our personal body. But when you start to learn Reiki, you can do it on yourself.
mm,
That's the first thing you learn. You learn about that energy and you learn to apply it to yourself.
mm.
And you can use it on animals and you can use it on plants just like you can use it on someone else. You can even, yes.
Well, I was just going to say, like you said, universal energy, and
Hmm.
its application is universal in that way, so that even if people can't hear their dog, not everybody can, talking to them,
Hmm.
if you sense that they're in pain, say they're arthritic or something, it sounds so beautiful that it's a very gentle mode of healing, and yet it can have incredible effects and a positive impact.
Absolutely. And that's actually what attracted me to it
Hmm.
at first. You know, it was once I had a chance to go see someone who took the time to explain this to me at the beginning,
Hmm,
you
nice.
know, and it really connected with what I thought things are in the energy world, I'm gonna say, and basically that it's everything is very um, soft and calming. And one of the things that you learn when you learn Reiki and you start to give it to other people is at the beginning you set an intention, well, intention in quotation marks, meaning, you know, you wish that the person receives all that she can or is able to receive for her greater good or his greater good and for the greater good of everything and everyone else. So it's a very flowy, maybe it's not the right word, but it's a very flowy,
Feels
it's
divine feminine. It feels very much like the divine feminine, which is where the body's innate intelligence is as well. It's like communicating with
yeah.
that inside us, probably to activate
Hmm.
like that open window and clear things out.
Yes, yes. And it really helps to improve the flow of things. There's a divine plan. Like you said,
Mm.
there's a divine plan, and Reiki will help to realign us on the divine path of this plan. And so it goes with the flow, I think, of the universe, of what needs to happen, what has to happen. It will help us move ahead on that path. And that, for me, that's what that intention means. And it gives a lot of meaning, and it makes Reiki have sense to me
Mm.
and to people that I talk to about it, because of this exact reason. It really encourages us to get to where we're supposed to go, or we should be going, for our greater good and the greater good for the entire world and everything around us,
Oh, you're making
which
me
is
want
really
to have a
awesome.
Reiki session, Patrick.
It is so soothing,
It
I find.
feels soothing. It
Yes,
feels
yes.
lovely and so
Hmm.
gentle, and in a lot of energy medicine, but I'm just familiar with homeopathy. It's pretty much a do no harm
Hmm.
modality, right? So
Yes.
you receive the benefits, but there aren't really any negatives that I know
Hmm.
about. And
Hmm.
Reiki, it sounds like when practitioners are in their integrity and with all the training that you have, and you're going to talk about the different levels of a Reiki practitioner, because there are levels. I just wanted to say before we go there, then, because it has like a wide reach, it can help move energy in a lot of situations. It sounds like it could help people who might feel stuck in their job or trapped in a marriage or something where they just feel like they're stuck and blocked and can't move forward. But it can also help with health issues where things aren't, maybe expedite healing, but just facilitate that process or augment healing in a bigger way. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Like, have you ever had a time where you were not well in some way and some Reiki helped? I just maybe brings the calming and resets you to your divine
That's
blueprint.
exactly
Mhm.
that's exactly what it does. Yes. And the physical, ethically speaking, I can't speak of healing, of
Right.
course.
Okay.
I don't think even that the word treatment is supposed to be said. It would be more of a session.
Mhm.
But yes, I really believe, after all the experience and research that I've done in my life, that all the diseases that we have do come from emotions and thoughts that stay a long time in our fields or surround us, or the things around us, and eventually it crystallizes into the physical
Right.
world, into matter. So you're stuck in a job, you're having issues. Reiki will always, always assist, help to realign everything. So I think that if we were to do that all the time regularly, we would get sick less, because something would help us to always realign. And usually when we get sick is to get rid of something, get through something, that there's something that needs to heal inside us, which is probably emotional or mental when that happens. But it all manifests in our body, because our bodies are the manifestation of everything that we are, us wanting to be here, um, and what we're here to do. So, yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
that answers your question,
Oh,
but
it's so
yeah.
beautiful. It is like a
Hmm.
spiritual hygiene, a spiritual
Hmm.
tune-up and
That's it.
cleansing. And it's
Yes.
interesting if people were to think like, oh, I won't take a shower for the next month, right? Or I won't brush my teeth for this quarter of the year. I don't think that's going to go so well for us or our loved ones have to
True.
put up with it, right?
True.
And yet we accept that with our spiritual energy, our life force, our chi. we allow that to, because we just aren't taught these things. It is a language and a world that many people go seeking, especially when more conventional and traditional healing modalities, going to your GP, going to your doctor, when they don't have any more answers, when they've tried a number of things and you don't see improvement, that's typically when people go outside of that box and find alternatives. And Reiki is definitely among them. I can't tell you, like, in my journey, my spiritual journey over the last, I don't know, 20 years or so, I meet so many people who have experienced Reiki, but often who have taken at least like level 1 training. And so it's in a lot of people's, it's in their consciousness. So it's in my consciousness. And isn't it funny? I find it fascinating. I'm sure there are other things like Reiki that I've heard about that I just haven't taken those courses myself, but it's in my consciousness. And somehow in my consciousness, I probably even receive some kind of benefit from people like you who are trained, that I tap into that universal frequency at some level, right?
Yes.
Just feeling or thinking about Reiki calls it into your consciousness, and you can be in a place of receiving. But of course, I'm sure it's even better when you go to somebody with the actual skills to practice Reiki. So maybe we want to talk a little bit about the levels of practitioner training.
Yes. Well, I do want to mention something about the uses still, if you don't mind. I want to add a
Please.
little something because, we're talking about doing it to ourselves, other people, animals, plants, of course. But one thing that's very cool is that you can do it on objects and you can do it on actual situations too.
Wow.
So I don't know, let's say you have to go to court for some reason. I thought
A
just
draw, a
just a
speeding
good idea.
ticket, a
A
speeding
speeding
ticket.
ticket, have to go to court, whatever. You can actually do Reiki on the document, on the piece of paper, to wish that it goes as well as it can be, that it flows, that it's not like that not that it's not a challenge, because that would saying that for something, wishing for something to not be something is not good. We want to wish for something to be something. And
Okay.
so want it to be flowy, want it to be easy. So you can do it on a document, or you can do it on a situation too, which I love. If somebody is sick, you can do it remotely to someone. So you can imagine them, you can put them in a nice bed in front of you, and you will imagine light shining on that person. And then you put your hands and you imagine your hands are a basket of light, and you just move your hands along the body, and you just let go and just concentrate on this feeling of letting the energy flow. So imagine the person is right there in front of you. You can do that. There's other ways. I've learned many ways. I've had the opportunity to learn from um, 3 different Reiki masters. So the different levels, I did more than once. Um, for me, I thought that was appropriate. It's not necessary. You don't need to do that, but it did give me a chance to see different perspectives, because a Reiki, everybody, when we learn something, we take it into ourselves, and then when we teach it giving it our flavor. So not that it taints the teachings, but it does change it a little bit. So having different perspectives really, I think, enriched my um, perspective, and trying to link all perspectives together. So there are different ways to do it to people remotely. You can also put a situation, whether it's your situation or you ask somebody else, or a group of people. Maybe you have friends that do Reiki and say, can we, I don't know, let's make an appointment each in our houses, and at 7 p.m. tonight, let's do a 10-minute Reiki on this situation. And you put the situation there, you imagine everything, you bring the situation. Is there a place? Are there people? And you just put light in that situation as if it was a little bubble of light, and you give it the Reiki energy. And I just think that's beautiful, and
I'm
that's very
already
nice.
tapping into this universal
Yeah.
energy just by hearing you talk about it. I'm like, I'm in there with
Yes.
you. It's so
Hmm.
nice.
Hmm.
Well, and so to your point, Reiki is also something you can do remotely, whereas
Yes.
obviously, like, traditional surgery or having a cast put on your arm. If you break a bone, you have to be there. What's beautiful about distance healing, you can do this. It's consciousness. It's everywhere, and it's like
Hmm.
directed energy, right?
Yes.
It's intentional energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If space and time don't exist, which is what we seem to be getting towards, old knowledge, but it seems to finally be coming back. So if time and space doesn't exist, doing an energy work remotely would work. I personally still prefer, I'm still a physical being, and my personal preference is to be in contact, be
Mm,
with the person, but it's absolutely doable without any doubt or question about the effectiveness of it, the efficiency of it. Yeah.
yeah. And that is very powerful. I think in the last few years, many people discovered the benefits of like telehealth or telemedicine. This
Hmm.
is its own form. And again,
Hmm.
I think we have to be careful about not calling it a treatment or a cure or things like that. But people can have Reiki sessions. And if you find a practitioner, it sounds like they could, if you're in the United States and you like somebody who's in Australia, it works, right? It
Hmm.
works.
Hmm.
Time and space don't limit the
Yes,
benefits, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
powerful.
Hmm.
Well, so do you want to move into just talking for people who hear this and they say, number one, oh my gosh, I want to experience that. I want to have a session with Patrick. Specifically, they might be feeling that. I'm feeling that.
That would be my pleasure.
But another thing they're thinking is, wow, if I experience that, or even if I don't, I feel a calling to that. So, what do people do? So, you obviously had your own session as like a client of somebody
Hmm.
who did a Reiki
Hmm.
session.
Hmm.
But then somewhere along the journey, you decided you wanted to be trained in this as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I just thought that it connected with my beliefs of how energy works, how healing works. And since then, it's just been accelerating, the information coming in and pieces falling into place, that it is all connected like this. And science and medicine today is really concentrated on the physical aspect of things. And unfortunately, I feel that when we listen to science speaking today, um, it's as if not only is it concentrated on the physical thing, but it's the only thing that seems to matter
Mm.
and to be real. And for me, that's like trying to look at a pie, but actually seeing just a little piece.
Right.
And we need to add these modalities to our
Right.
healthcare, the energy works.
I
Yeah,
agree. It's more holistic. I often talk about
holistic.
holistic fitness,
Yes.
but it's a whole. There's a
Yes.
wholeness to it that
Hmm.
is, in many respects, missing when we got so far into the Newtonian way of breaking everything into
Yes.
separate parts.
Hmm.
And what I hear you saying, that I have definitely experienced that. I've had experiences in my life where there were no medical answers and the doctors were tapped out, and you can see the look that look in somebody when they know they've got no other tools in their skill
Hmm.
set.
Hmm.
And they would often, I don't know, either just usher me out the door and say, I mean, their response to me when there were no answers would be, maybe in another 5 or 10 or 20 years of medical discovery, we'll have some answers. But for the person needing something now, there are limits, maybe to all modalities. Like Reiki's not going to do stitches on somebody if they need to be stitched up or reset the bone or do surgery per se. But all of them can complement the other if they would work together. So it's interesting how in the duality of our world, it's either conventional medicine or alternative
Hmm.
healing options.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think our world, as we continue to evolve, is going to realize there's a place for all of them at the table,
Hmm.
right? If people are receiving benefits. So I definitely resonate with that. So do you want to chat about the levels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Um, the question that I had at one point when I started training and learning Reiki, was but how can I do it? It seems so powerful. I mean, me channeling energy and being able to do that after a few days of training, how can that be? And what I learned is that, of course, in the first level, you do learn the history of Reiki, how it was discovered or actually rediscovered because it's very, very old. And there's this doctor. There's different types of Reiki, I have to say, and I'm not familiar with all of them. The one that I learned is the one from Dr. Mikao Uzui, and a Japanese doctor. And at one point, he discovered these Sanskrit
Wow.
texts and these symbols. And he went, I believe he went into the desert and he found, a little bit like Jesus, he did find and rediscovered these symbols and their meanings and their power. And when he came back, he was able to heal people. Not supposed to say heal, but actually being able to heal. And he found that in the beginning, in the past, when Reiki was being used, you had to spend weeks and weeks studying the symbols to be able to integrate them, to understand them, to understand them.
Mm.
And it was a long process, but you're not going to be surprised when I say that time is accelerating. Everything is going faster and faster and faster, and us having access to these things, to these wisdoms, these powers, these energies, is much more available to us.
Mm.
So this is why nowadays it can be done fairly quickly. They had to spend weeks in a chamber. It was copper, I believe, sitting in water and looking at the symbols and the reflection of the symbols everywhere to integrate the energy of the symbols. And now it can be done fairly quickly.
Well, they
So
probably anchored into the collective consciousness somehow. They were the
also,
conduits of bringing it back,
yeah,
probably. Wow.
exactly. And depending on the Reiki master, you have to go find a Reiki master to learn Reiki for sure.
Mhm.
So it's a person that did all the levels. And I've seen two ways of doing it too. Sometimes they do it in 3 levels, sometimes they do it in 4. Me, so happens that the 3 Reiki masters that I went to did it in 4 levels.
Okay.
So level 1, you learn what Reiki is, the history of Reiki, what is the energy of Reiki, and how to do it on yourself. Give yourself Reiki energy and all the positions of the hands that you can put to heal yourself.
Mm.
And you leave your hands for about 1, 2, 3 minutes, depending on what time you have. I mean, you know, the longer the better, but at the same time, really, not necessarily. It can be very powerful and short also, time being what it is.
Mm.
So you learn about magnetism, maybe doing Reiki, giving Reiki to a plant or an animal. That's what Reiki 1 was
Mm.
generally. That's what it's about. Reiki 2, second level, you have to wait at least 21 days to do that
Oh.
second level. There's an integration. Um, and the second level usually is giving it to other people. So you start to being able to offer Reiki to other people, whether it's in person or remotely. So you learn about the chakras because now you realize that these energy centers, you can concentrate on them and give energy at these centers, and that these centers in the bodies are important places to put your hands on and wait for a while.
Mm.
Now, some teachers will tell you that you don't touch the person. You put your hands in their etheric body, but others you actually put the hands on the person, which is something that I do. I put the hands on the person. It's just the weight of my hands. As long as I feel it flowing, I'll leave my hands and then I'll move them to another place. Of course, you respect the personal places. Of course, you don't put it in the face or in the intimate parts. Um, some people do it just lying on the back and you just do the front of the body because the energy goes right through the body. It's perfect. Um, I've also learned to do it. The person starts sitting, lying on their front of their bodies, and then they turn around mid-session, and then you continue and they
On the
go on
back.
their back and you do the front of their bodies. So there are different ways of doing it, and it's important to know that they're probably all good.
Mm.
And that's why I'm happy to have had the chance to learn with various Reiki masters, because for me, I don't think that there's just necessarily one way. There's things that are fundamental, the symbols that you learn. You start to learn them in Reiki too, at practitioner level too. And the fact that you just give the intention that they're able to receive what they need to receive. You're not trying to do something. You're not trying to help. The energy will work through you. You don't need to do anything. You
Right.
don't need to force it. Oh, you really want to help this person. You're going to send a lot of love. You're going to put a lot of love, and that's not necessary. It will just be present, be there, offer what you can, and wish that the person receives the best that they can receive for the greater good and the greater good of
Mhm.
everybody else.
Yes, it's so
So,
intentional. It's so intentional.
yes. So that would be Ricky too. Um, was it a year? I know between Reiki 3 and Reiki and the master level, there's at least a year. I forget it between 2 and 3, but it doesn't really matter. In 3, you just go deeper. You start to work more on your power, more on your intuition. You realize, because you practiced a little bit on yourself and on other people, that you might feel things. And one
Mm.
of the greatest lessons that I've learned doing Reiki is, how we can be good at judging ourselves. I don't know if that ever happens to you.
I think we can all relate. Right, that inner critic. Yeah. Mm.
So sometimes I have a client, I will put my hands and I would start thinking about my grocery list, and the grocery shopping, and like, oh, I'm not present. This is not good. And then I would hit myself in the head, or then I would have a thought, and the thought would be, do I believe in this? I don't even know if I believe in this. What am I doing? Oh yeah, it can go that bad. Bad. It can be that intense. And speaking to my Reiki master at one point, they said, but that's totally normal, Patrick. The minute you do Reiki and you put your hands on a person, everything that goes through your mind doesn't belong to you. And I was
Mm.
like, what? Really? It took me a while to believe that and understand what it meant. For example, the two examples that I gave, grocery shopping. I'm starting to think about everything I have to do. So stripping the filter of Patrick, the information that's behind it is so much to do, pressure to do so much. And
Mm.
so while I'm doing the session, I might say, oh, you're really putting a lot on your shoulders, aren't you? A lot of pressure. And I'm not expecting the person to answer. I'm just letting that information sink in. And the
Mm.
person will have a reaction to that, because that's the message that I got. It was filtered through my emotions, my thoughts,
Right.
which I was judging, but it was actually information coming in,
You're like a
stripping.
surrogate of their energy field. You're like a
Yes,
surrogate of their energy field. Hmm.
exactly, exactly. And what was the other example again? Oh, do I
Um,
believe in this?
yes.
Do I believe in this? And it was a client that my master had referred to me. And I said, well, and I started to doubt, and it doesn't work. And she looked at me with a big smile and she said, well, Patrick, the person I sent you doesn't believe in Reiki, but she wants to, but she keeps doubting. And that's what you were getting. I was like, what? Really? So that's how it works for me. And you know that intuition will work a million different ways depending on the person. But that's one of the things that I thought was really cool, because that's when you start to get to level 3, you really start to go into understanding more what your intuition is. You get an additional symbol, and it does amplify the power, because you every time you go through a level, you receive a spiritual initiation. There's a natural ritual,
Wow.
and the ritual is to help you activate and increase the vibration, the frequency of your crown chakra and your heart chakra. And your hands are connected, they're secondary chakras connected to the heart chakra. And that's where the energy flows through. So you do have a lot of work that's being done on your higher chakras to increase their frequency and be able to channel more and more of that Reiki energy, right? And the symbols go with that.
Mm.
And that's the third level. And the fourth level is mastery. And what I loved about this, I mean, it deeply, deeply touched me when she explained it, my Reiki master, was when you do that fourth level, yes, you have the title Reiki master, but you're not I am a master.
Right.
And that's so important to understand, because there is ego there in a lot of Reiki masters
Mm.
to I'm a master, and they will do rituals. The person will be kneeling down while they do the ritual for the initiation. And I've heard all sorts of stories. But why kneel? We're not better than
Right.
anything.
There's no hierarchy. No.
There's no, when you're a master, it's because you've accepted to walk the path of the master for the rest of your life, not necessarily saying that you're going to reach mastery, but you engaged, you decide, committed, you committed yourself to go on that path. And in that path, you have to, when you meet people, you have to recognize the master within them, even if they don't know that it's there,
Mm.
because everybody is a master.
Right.
You just,
Yeah.
you might work on yourself, do whatever you need to do, and eventually maybe you want to go on that path and commit to going on that path of being more conscious and conscious of your emotions, conscious of your thoughts, of the impact of what you do, what you create energetically around you by your actions, by your thoughts, and by your emotions too. Your
Okay.
thoughts and your emotions do radiate from you, so you do create that. And I think that's what mastery is. It's just being more conscious, accepting that path, and realizing that we're all on that path in a way. And I just thought it was beautiful. And at
Mm.
that last level, you have the symbol of the master, and you learn the final initiations, because then you're able to teach Reiki at that point. And these are the 4 levels, the way that I've experienced them. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm so grateful.
It's so beautiful. And it's like, it's just gotten so much closer in my consciousness versus a
Mm,
concept that I know that's out there. And it's more abstract to me. It definitely feels like a companion in life. It feels like an ally in our journeys, and as a frequency that once you know these things, you take it wherever you go. It again, without I know it's tricky with using treatments and cures and remedies, but it's like a
the
spiritual
tool.
first aid kit tool that you can use in all kinds of things. And we didn't mention if somebody was in serious trauma, emotional trauma, they just had a shock, they just heard some news, they just lost their job, something happens. It's wonderful to have these skills, because this is what impacts on the bigger levels of our lives. It calms and quells fear. It's empowering when you know that you have the tools in your spiritual toolbox to meet anything in your life. You meet
Hmm.
life differently. You know, you
Yes.
journey in life feeling supported versus feeling, I don't know, some fear of lack, that we won't have what we need, that we can't handle something. And this feels like a very gentle, beautiful, organic
Organic.
organic
Absolutely.
energy that we all have. It's just learning the language, it's just calling it into our consciousness. I'd imagine people say they never even take a Reiki course, but they've had a Reiki session. They can probably just close their eyes and feel what they felt with the practitioner and get some benefit out of the consciousness of Reiki in their
Hmm.
own awareness, right? I'm
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
saying that's the same as a Reiki session, but it feels there's a power here that again, it's outside of time and space, and I think that's what a lot of people are longing for, even if they appear confident in their lives. And we know those people, we might have been those people, right? And it just takes the right trigger in our lives to cause a little bit of emotional or spiritual or physical unraveling. And
Hmm.
it's very powerful when we can have these tools at our disposal, and one of the tools is to know I need a Reiki session, right? That's
Hmm.
awareness is a tool, what we're talking about, to even make
Absolutely.
that call and schedule the session. So I wanted to ask you a question. When you were talking about the levels and you were talking about the Reiki master, and that's the only person who can teach Reiki, like a level 1 person cannot be a teacher of Reiki, like in certify courses, it sounds like, right?
Absolutely. That's right.
So, can have you ever thought about you being a teacher, Patrick?
Yes. I have. I have. I'm more and more thinking about it. And doing this podcast with you in a way is a little bit to tap into that teaching energy about Reiki, of course. And yeah, I have thought about it. I do feel I need to go back into more detail, especially the history of
Mhm.
Dr. Mikao Uzui in more detail. And I've read different parts of books and have gotten training from different masters. So there's various informations, perhaps interpretations of the history. And
Oh,
I
yes.
want to make sure that I just want to have good information and revise everything. And for me, having a nice manual, a
Mm,
little book for the teaching for the course is something that I think is valuable. And I want to make sure that I put pertinent and good information in there. So yes, I'm thinking about it. I have to start working on
I
it.
know, because a course with
Yes.
Patrick on Reiki, like a level 1, I would sign up for that. I would be one
Thank
of your
you.
first students. I would be there. Just from what I'm hearing today, I would love to experience that. No pressure. I mean, no pressure to create it, but that's also what people are learning too. If they're new to this world of alternative healing, you are listening for resonance. There could be 10 Reiki practitioners in your local area, but this is also, it would be ahead of the game in the Reiki levels, because it sounds like in 2 and 3 you're tapping more into your intuition. But that's a skill that we're cultivating in all of our lives, whether you take a Reiki course or not, and that awareness of resonance, of like, oh, I feel attracted to this person's website, or a
Hmm.
testimonial that I saw. I
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
totally relate to that. And we're listening for that versus just like, you know, searching on the internet, Reiki practitioner, and just going with the first one that shows up in a search. I think we're all being called to attune at a deeper level for the person, the practitioner that's right for us.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and in this process, just like with anything, if you go to one Reiki session and you know that you're connected with Reiki, but you don't quite feel a connection, perhaps, or then you find
Very
somebody
important.
else and you give yourself
Yes.
permission. And I think that's true of anything, whether we're talking about a general practitioner, a doctor, or an
Hmm.
attorney, or whatever,
Hmm.
or a
Hmm.
teacher or a tutor for your kids in school. I think we're all awakening as well to this deeper awareness of where resonance is.
Hmm.
And it's all part of like us activating on the path of that mastery you're talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's powerful. Well, do you have anything else that you wanted to share today?
I
For
do have advice, for someone who's willing to learn Reiki and wants to start on this path. Um, Reiki masters, since, as I mentioned, we received the teachings, we integrated it, and we decided to share those teachings to other people, and they will be our with our flavor.
Hmm.
So different Reiki masters will fill out or cut the teachings of levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 differently, maybe. Or like I said, some of them do it in 3 levels. That's totally different. So if you start on a path with a Reiki master, make sure that they do offer all the levels if you're thinking that you might want to go further than just level 1 and 2. Because, for example, if I were to develop level 1 and not be ready for a long time to do level 2, would that be okay for my students? You
Hmm.
know, you have to think of that, because would I accept somebody who did level 1 with somebody else not knowing what they learned or how they learned it,
Hmm.
you know? Um, that's just something to be aware of, because when I had to change when I decided, sorry, to change Reiki masters, I had to retake certain levels sometimes,
Wow.
because they wanted to make sure that I integrated what they need me to integrate to go to their next level.
Right.
Hmm.
Hmm. So a little foresight, a more
Yes.
intentionality to it.
When you search and when you ask questions to the Reiki master you want to work with, yes.
And then can I ask this, when you take a course, is it generally like, is it one of those things that's like over a period of 6 weeks, or is it like a weekend course? Does
Good
everybody do it
question.
differently?
Everybody do it differently. Um, Level 1, I've had it in 1 day. I've had it in 2 days. Same for level 2. Level 3, I had it in a day and a half, and then in 4.5 days. It was a silent retreat.
Wow.
So it can be done very differently. I love the idea of doing it in 4 or 5 days, because you bathe into this energy with other people with you, and she had people that had already done that level with us just to assist her and be there with their presence and their energy. And we were in nature, so of course it was more expensive,
Right.
but it was an experience
Mhm.
instead of just being a
Of course.
class, a
Mm.
course. Yeah.
There's a difference. Yeah.
And master was the same. I took the master level just once. It was the same. It was 5 days in nature, silent retreat. So it was just beautiful. So it can be done in so many different ways, and it's really nice to pick the way that suits you and that feels better for you.
Hmm. And what it also sounds like is people can move through the levels at their own pace.
Mhm.
And that's also at their own financial pace too,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So
Absolutely.
your own consciousness, your own ability to integrate what you're learning, and then also, your financial resources. But the feeling that I'm getting about Reiki is how accessible it is. It's not like you have to take like some plane to some far off land to study
No.
with a master on the top of a mountain.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's close by most of us.
And
Yeah.
I've been wondering, and I've heard of people doing Reiki training online.
Mm,
Uh, I'm not sure I'm sold on the idea. This is the ritual itself, the initiation, like I said, to work on the frequency of the high chakras, is I don't feel
mm,
it being done online remotely. there's probably a way. It's probably some belief that I have that's blocking me.
Mhm.
Totally open to that. But I have issues with that. I still want to feel there's things that need to be done energetically to activate and
Mhm.
increase the vibration. And I don't know if I would offer it online because of that. The teaching and the information is one thing,
Hmm.
but there's more
I would
to it.
need a hovercraft to get to you. Some of
Yes,
those
it's
vertical
true.
cars we're hearing a little bit
It's
more
true.
about. Yeah. Well, that's good for me to keep in mind too, but I don't think that's too far away either. I think this is going to be more accessible. We want it to be more accessible in that
Mhm.
quickening you're talking about. The more people realize, for whatever reason in their own lives, that they've reached a limit in
Yes.
the medicine or the things that they seek to feel the well-being that they desire. We want this to be widely available because it is so
Mhm.
gentle, it is so soothing, it is so loving and compassionate, to yourself, right? It's like
Yes.
you give this gift to yourself. Yeah. So, but it's good to also hear you say that. I think that's true. I think some courses are fine online, and some courses are much more designed to have the actual physical interaction in the physical space. Yeah. Well, this has been most enlightening. I feel like Reiki can be my friend after this call. Like I feel like I'm knowing it through you. And
And
you're such a beautiful teacher. I mean, in general, but especially because Reiki is something that you cherish and value. Yeah.
that's
And no,
exactly, yeah,
yeah.
what I was going to say. I'm so happy to have had the chance to discuss and have this talk with you about Reiki. I feel very passionate about it. I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful modality um, of how to use energy to heal and help us be more in the flow of the divine plan.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's so amazing. Well, thank you. I want to thank you for joining me. I want to invite our audience. Anybody who has questions, feel free to put them in the comments section of the video. And I want to be sure to ask you, Patrick. So I didn't say this when I read a little bit about your bio, but Patrick is in Canada, as
yes.
French is your first language. So I think it's always amazing. You would never, to me, if I met you, I would never necessarily know that, right? Or make that assumption, because your English is so incredible and you're pretty much self-taught, right?
Oui, mais merci Marie, ça fait plaisir, c'est très gentil.
I felt the energy of that. Yes. And it's such a beautiful language, French. My daughter's taking French in college right now. I took Spanish, so but it is a lovely language, and Reiki is a lovely universal energy and language for the soul
Mhm,
as
mhm.
well. And I was going to ask you, where can people contact you if they want to reach out to you, or if they want to have a session? How can people contact you?
Well, I suggest to contact me by email.
Mhm.
It's reiki.patrickchevalier@gmail.com.
And so that's wonderful. So people can reach out to you if they've just been touched by this experience today. They've been activated in some way by listening to what we're sharing.
Mhm.
And it is lovely when you feel a connection with somebody and you say, "Oh, that's the person I want to have that experience with," or "That's the person I want to have that class with."
Yes.
That's how I shop all of my experiences, is based on energy and frequencies.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I'm really grateful we got to talk about this today. And I aim to have you back in the not too distant future, Patrick, for more podcasts together, because I'm about to share an article that you've written. It's going to be posted on the Whole Soul School and Foundation
True.
website, talking about stress and coherence.
Yes,
Yes?
heart coherence.
Heart
Exactly.
coherence, right? Which is
Mhm,
another beautiful awareness and consciousness and skill you have in your toolbox. So I have a feeling, I'm feeling psychic today that we're going to have another podcast about that soon. So thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to coming back
Thank you,
and doing
Marie.
this again. Thank you. And blessings, everybody. You can find this podcast and others like it at wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org, and you can find videos through Whole Soul Mastery at Color the Magic on YouTube. And we'll see you all soon. Blessings, everyone.